Hi, I'm Vicky Payne, veterinary consultant for Oscars and Breakthrough, and today we're talking about dogs that bark and dogs that bark excessively. So the first thing to remember, I suppose, is that barking is a natural dog behaviour. It's something that's seen in dogs but not in related animals like wolves so much. They have different vocalisations, but in creating domestic dogs they have developed quite a range of noises to communicate with us. Dogs between themselves are much more about body language. Between dogs and us it's much more barking, whining, growling. They're all ways to communicate. If you're thinking about getting a dog and you live perhaps in a busy area or a flat, it's worth knowing that some breeds are more likely to be yappy and barky than others. It's often small breeds that are more likely to bark, those with a heritage of catching small rodents, so your terriers, but also some of the breeds, chihuahuas, shih tzus, dogs like that, can be a little bit more barky. Additionally, when we look at the larger breeds, it's often those guarding breeds that bark, because that's something that historically we've wanted those dogs to do. So German Shepherds, Rottweilers, any of those guarding breeds are more likely to have a big bark, and certainly any of the livestock guarding breeds are more likely to bark in certain situations. But all dogs will bark. I think to expect our dogs never to bark is totally unreasonable, but equally we've got to bear in mind that if we've got neighbours, if we've got people around us, we need to keep that barking to a manageable level. There is one breed that doesn't bark. The Basenji technically doesn't bark, but it doesn't mean that Basenjis are necessarily quiet. They have quite an interesting yodel that goes on instead. So there is no completely mute dog breed out there. So reasons that our dogs might bark. Excitement is definitely one of them. You'll all have seen dogs down the park. They want to play, they want to run, they want to do things that they enjoy, and they bark to say sort of, come on, join in, you know, let's get that ball thrown. So it can be a joyous thing to have a bit of barking. But what we need to watch is that it's not frustrated barking and that we're not perhaps winding dogs up too much. So if you don't want your dogs barking during play, then you can teach them to perhaps wait before a ball is thrown. You can look for calm behaviour. If they start to bark at you and demand that you throw the ball or throw the toy, you can break off and do something else with them. So say, I'm not gonna just throw it because you barked. We can see alarm barking. So alarm barking is really just when a dog's been surprised. So, you know, perhaps a car goes past and makes a noise and the dog kind of has a woof because something has happened that startled them. I think that's barking. That's not doesn't normally become a nuisance for people. It's just still going, oh God, something happened, and we might make a little noise or shriek if something startles us. So I think alarm barking is something not to worry about too much. When I mentioned play, I sort of mentioned that sometimes dogs will start barking to try and make us do things, to communicate that they're a bit frustrated and would like us to get on and play the game, get on and throw that ball. And so barking for attention is certainly something that dogs will learn to do. And we accidentally teach them by reinforcing that. So if your dog starts to bark at whatever, say there was a cat outside, the dog starts to bark, we're not reinforcing the dog by going, great, you did barking, have a treat. But what does tend to happen is we start shouting, oi Fido, shut up, stop barking at that cat, come on now, quieten down, the neighbours are going to complain. From a dog's point of view, this probably seems like we're joining in. And so by joining in, by giving them attention, perhaps by calling them away or trying to distract them with food at the moment that they're barking, but mostly by us barking ourselves, we're sort of joining in and reinforcing that barking at the cat is the right thing to do. Suddenly the whole family is like woof woof at the cat. So certainly, yes, dogs will bark for attention or will learn to bark for attention. So when we're looking at attention barking, we can fix that, and that can be really annoying. We need to fix that by asking the dog to do something else and doing a behaviour that we can reward. So one way that we can do this is by teaching dogs to speak on command. It's not something that I teach with my personal dogs because they're gun dogs and gun dogs are expected to work without ever barking. I don't want them to think that it's ever a behaviour that I might want to encourage, but with pet dogs it can be a really great trick to teach them. Bizarrely, you have to start by making them bark. So we like to wind the dog up, do something that's going to get them barking. So it could be something that you know will make them bark, like ringing the doorbell or winding them up for a toy. And when they're doing that, you join in. So you'll be like, speak, 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 speak. There's no need to give any food reinforcement at this point, because the fact that you're joining in the game, that you're winding the dog up, that you're saying speak, 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 that is going to be rewarding enough in itself. And at some point you stop saying that. You go completely quiet, you stand very, very still, and you wait for your dog to do something else. So your dog will probably go, woof, woof, woof. What? Why have you shut up? Why are we not barking anymore? The second they shut up, you can feed them a high value reward. You can certainly use the breakthrough training treats. But yeah, so the dog stops barking. That split second that they stop barking, you can say quiet and pop a treat into their mouth. And then you can start barking again. Very soon you should have a dog that if you say speak will bark, and that can be really useful if you're at home on your own and somebody comes to the door that you don't know. Being able to hold your dog's collar, open the door and say speak, and have your dog bark can really be a really good security measure. Equally though, if it's somebody that you want to come into the house, or it's somebody just maybe delivering a parcel, they come, they knock on the door, your dog goes woof, 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 woof. You can say brilliant, well done, thanks, quiet. And then your dog will go, okay, I've told you that there was somebody at the door, and you're going to deal with it. So that's perhaps one way to deal with barking. Barking during play, barking for attention when the dog's person is there, neither of those things are particularly problem behaviours from the dog's point of view. They're engaged in a game, or they're trying to get the human's attention. The person is there. Although it can be distressing for our neighbours and annoying for yourself if you're the dog owner and your dog just won't shut up, the dog's probably okay in both of those situations in terms of how they feel. In fact, they're possibly having a great time, and we need to sort of bring them back down and make them have a slightly calmer great time. But barking can be an indicator that your dog is not happy and can be a sign of more serious problems. So I think one of the most common ones that I get asked about is dogs that are barking because they're left alone. So degrees of separation distress, and the mildest version, which we'll call FOMO, the fear of missing out. These are, apart from the FOMO dog, so the FOMO dog is just a dog that would rather be with you than not. I tend to differentiate their barking. I've heard it with most of my youngsters when I take the older dogs out. I hear woof woof. And then if I watch on the CCTV, the dog's like, is she going to come back? Is she going to come back? No. And I'll get a couple of like woof woof listens, and then they realise that I'm not going to come back and they go and do something else, like have a chew on a toy that's in their dog room. So FOMO tends not to be a massive problem for the dog. It tends to be not a massive problem for neighbours. And with a dog that's just a bit miffed because you've gone out and is just checking that you haven't forgotten them, then my approach would be to leave them with a safe toy that they can chew on, perhaps a toy stuffed with some food, so you can wet down their normal food. You might be using breakthrough, you might not. You might want to put some train up treats in there, but leave them something to chew on. Maybe leave them a licky mat if they're not a destructive dog. Leave them a nice hard wearing chew, and generally those dogs will then be okay. The ones that I'm concerned about are the ones that are becoming distressed because they've been left, and it's a real genuine distress. It's the same sort of panic that you might have felt as a child when you suddenly lost your parents in the supermarket. It's that level of panic. Yeah, it's that level of panic. It's that level of hurt. So these dogs are really upset. They're not able to cope on their own. And so yes, they'll whine, bark, howl, telling the world that they're not comfortable with being left. I would advise, if you think that your dog's got any level of separation distress, that you get a professional involved, because the protocols are quite hard. I certainly think this isn't really something that you should tackle on your own. Your behaviourist may need to work with a vet. Some of these dogs will need to be prescribed medications to help them in the initial phases of their separation training. But also we've obviously got the breakthrough diet, which can be great for these dogs. It can give them a calmer background mood state. It can make it easier for them to learn things, all by positively affecting the neurotransmitter levels in the brain. So certainly if you've got a dog with separation distress, get a behaviourist involved, get your vet involved, and do ask whether breakthrough might be suitable for your dog. We've actually got a blog on that, so if you have a look at the breakthrough website and look through the blogs, then there are blogs on separation distress and making your dog happy to be left. Ideally, when you get a young dog or you get a new dog, follow those top tips so that they don't become distressed about being left. Another area that a lot of people ask me for help with is dogs that bark when people come to the door. And I think all of us now, it used to just be the postman, but now we've got, food delivery drivers, we've got parcel delivery drivers, and I think most of us are getting more deliveries to our door than ever in the past, even when there were 2 postal deliveries a day. And this, from the dog's point of view, is a really difficult one to crack. As far as the dog's concerned, somebody's come to the house, has tried to get into the house because they've knocked on your door, they've maybe rattled the letterbox. I always think from a dog's point of view, the dog's thinking, oh God, somebody's coming into my house. They quite reasonably, I think, have a little bark, woof woof, both to alert you if you're in that somebody's trying to break into your house, but also to try and drive off that person. So there can be a little bit of fear there for the dog. Oh, somebody's coming into my territory, I better be big and scary and make them go away. Of course, what happens is that the person goes away. Now, we know that the person goes away because that's what delivery drivers do. They knock on your door, they throw the parcel down, they take a quick picture, and they run away as quickly as possible to get onto their next delivery. As far as the dog is concerned, the threat, that person trying to get into their house, heard them bark like a big scary dog and went away. Brilliant. So that reinforces the dog. The dog then feels relief. Wow, amazing. That went away. The threat's gone. I can go and have a little kip. That's really reinforcing for the dog, going from fear to relief, massively reinforcing. So we don't even need to be there to make this barking a thing that the dog is more likely to do in the future. Door barking, though, is quite a challenge to fix. You would need to be able to give your dog an alternate thing to do every single time somebody comes through the door and make sure that they're rewarded for that. So it's absolutely doable. You can teach dogs to go to their bed on the cue of the doorbell or a door knock, and you can either then throw food at them when they're lying on their bed, or you can use a remote treat dispenser for that. The train up treats will work through the remote treat dispensers, but you might have to cut them up smaller. I have just about got them to work. But the problem is it's only going to take one person coming to the door when you're not there, when you're not able to ask for that alternative behaviour and you're not able to reward that alternative behaviour. And again, barking is going to win, and that's going to really bring your progress back down. So how do I deal with it? I don't. I cheat. If you've really got a problem, you can shut the dog in a room where they can't access the door and bark at the door. So if it's possible to keep them in a room at the back of the house and have deliveries come to the front, that's going to reduce the amount of barking that you get at the door. Or you can just put a post box or a parcel box outside your house away from the front door, and that's normally my number one way of dealing with it if that's become a real problem for a dog and their owner. So it's kind of lazy behaviourism, but it works really well and it stops things being a problem. A similar type of barking can occur with people passing the house. So dogs that are indoors, they're chilled out, they're having a sleep, they hear a noise outside or see people walking past a window, or cats going through the garden, any of these sort of things that causes that, again, kind of alarm, excitement. And it can be a combination of both of them. It can be, oh my God, is somebody coming into the house? Oh God, somebody's coming into the house. Wow, there's a cat. It can be that bit of play frustration. I want to go and play with that cat. But again, how do we deal with that when we're not there? Obviously, when we're there, we could teach an alternative behaviour. So we could have the speak and quiet that I've talked about. We could simply say something like, enough, come, have a treat for coming away. And over time, if they repeat that, you'll tend to get a shorter duration of barking. So it'll be like, woof woof, I told you about the cat, now I'm coming to get my treat. The problem is if we're not there, because we're not there to either ask for that alternative behaviour or to reward that alternative behaviour if the dog tries it. So again, the lazy behaviourist comes in here. I will leave a television on, leave a radio on. It's not going to stop the dog hearing everything outside. They're not going to think I'm in the house, so it won't work for separation distress. But it does just mean if there's a level of background noise, the dog is less likely to notice the big rattly truck that goes past. So definitely something to try. You can also use window coverings. So if there's a particular window that the dog can see passers-by from, I tend not to go for net curtains. They tend to get pulled down by the scrabbly claws. But there's lots of window films that you can put up that are semi-opaque, and that is often enough to reduce barking at the windows as things go past. So again, sometimes it's more about managing a situation than actually trying to fix it. We can have a situation with some dogs that are particularly sensitive to noises, and these dogs are going to react much more strongly than what I'd kind of consider your normal dog. It can be older dogs whose hearing is going. Now that sounds a little bit bizarre, but when their hearing is going, they're not going to hear background noises so much, and so a sudden loud noise will be more startling for them and more upsetting and more likely to cause barking. It might be specific noises, so it might be that your dog barks when there's fireworks, when there's thunder, might have a fear of trucks or something like that. So if we've got particular noise sensitivities, again, the breakthrough food can be enough to sort of calm the background level of stress in the dog and reduce their level of reactivity to sounds, but this may be something that you need specific help from a behaviourist on for a counter conditioning and desensitisation programme. And again, we've got blogs on counter conditioning and desensitisation for things like fireworks and other noises, and we've got, I think, one on noise sensitivity in general as well. Barking at other dogs or people out on the lead is yet another area of barking that can become problematic for people. So these would be typically what we term reactive dogs. They can be reactive to some dogs, all dogs, some people, all people. So dogs may have different reasons for being reactive. So it can be lack of socialisation, so they just haven't seen very much in the world. If a puppy's been brought up mostly with ladies and hasn't encountered big men with beards, that might be something that initially startles them. If they've had a bad experience, say if a dog's been attacked by a big black dog, they might decide that they don't like any big black dogs. So these dogs generally aren't barking because they're aggressive. They look very aggressive often, and because we've got them on a lead, they're lunging forward, straining at the end of the lead, you know, big wide eyes, teeth all bared, barking, barking, barking. This can look really aggressive, but in most cases, the root of this barking is fear. So the dogs are frightened, and a bit like the postman or delivery man, they're kind of getting in there first, going, go away, go on, get away from me, I'm a big scary horrible dog, get away. And the other dog tends to go away, or the person goes away. So from the dog's point of view, it works. The dog then feels a massive flood of relief. That dog didn't come and attack me. That person didn't come into my space because I thought he was a bit iffy. And then again, next time they see a dog or person that they're not sure about, they'll try that barking strategy again. That worked last time. I felt much better when they went away after doing the barking, so I'll do barking again. Again, this is an area that I would probably get professional help in for. There are several techniques for dealing with reactivity to dogs and people. Again, we've got a blog on dogs that are afraid of people. I think we've almost certainly got one on lead reactive dogs as well. So if you go on the website and search for dogs that are afraid of people or lead reactive dogs, then you'll probably find some more detailed advice on that. But there are various techniques, but what they all aim to do is change how the dog feels when it sees that thing. So if we imagine a dog that's scared of other dogs and is going to bark at them, we are letting our dog know that we will protect them from the things that they're scared of. So an approach I often take is to move the dog away, move them into a driveway, block the other dog with my body. Just say to my dog, it's all right, mate. I'm not going to let them come towards you, so you don't need to do anything about it because I've done it. I also then, as the dog passes and my dog doesn't react, they get loads of treats. And they might get scattered treats on the floor, we might play with a toy, I might feed them by hand. It depends a little bit what situation we're in. But over time, my dog changes from, oh God, scary things I might need to bark, to, hey, a dog's coming, that means we're going to get food. And once they sort of see the dog and realise that they don't have to react because my person's going to protect me, and then even better, I get food, I get a game, they start to feel differently about these dogs. Instead of feeling afraid and then barking and feeling relief, they kind of feel good, you know. And you can see I've got a little dog who used to be reactive, and now if a dog goes past her and barks, her tail starts wagging, she looks up at me, I kind of think she's saying, look, I didn't bark at that dog, aren't I great, can I have a treat? So you can definitely rehabilitate these dogs and get a quieter walk all round. The final sort of difficult barking that I'm going to talk about today is in older dogs, and this is the most difficult to sort out. So as dogs age, they can have what we call canine cognitive dysfunction, cognitive decline. So they start to get a little bit of doggy dementia, if you like to think of it like that. And this can cause a whole host of behaviour changes, including barking. Some completely deaf dogs will start to bark more because they can't hear themselves. I've already mentioned that dogs that are going deaf but aren't completely deaf may start to bark more because they're not hearing background noise, and loud noises are very startling for them. But also, as we get cognitive decline, the dogs are barking for no reason at all that we can understand. They might be frustrated, they might be barking because they want to go out even though they've just been out because they've forgotten that they've been out. And these cognitive decline cases can be really distressing, both for the dog, who, you know, is frustrated, confused, unable to settle, and also upsetting for people who are starting to both feel that they're losing their dog a little bit, but also it will take a toll. If your dog's getting you up in the middle of the night barking, you're worried about neighbours, you're worried about your dog. There isn't an easy answer for these dogs, unfortunately, certainly not in things that you can do at home. Breakthrough, definitely worth a go. Breakthrough startup, it may help in early cases. There are some other supplements to discuss with your vet which can help support early cases of cognitive dysfunction, and there are some medications that have been helpful as well. So don't feel that you have to either call it a day with your dog just because they've got barking at inappropriate times as they get old, or that there isn't any help out there. But it is one of the more difficult causes of excessive barking that is quite a difficult one to solve. So that's a brief run through of problem barking and what we can do about it. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we've got LinkedIn. Does anybody use LinkedIn? And we're also on TikTok, and loads of blogs on the website.